Welcome back to The Word and the Works, TWTW. We are in Frankenstein, Volume 2, Chapter 2, or depending on your version, it might be Chapter 10. And where we left last time, Dr. Frankenstein had retreated to the mountains. He had gone to nature, and really it's this retreat to nature because he's thinking about it, I think, as being immutable, unchangeable. And what he finds instead is even creation itself is very much constantly changing. Um, I'm Pastor Ben Meyer. My co-host is Pastor Jason Goodham. Pastor Goodham, where do you want to start on this?
Let's talk about that mutability, because that's the whole theme of the first half of the chapter.
Yeah, it is.
Is he and maybe there's a little bit of insight in this, because Frankenstein's worldview in the book is that nature is there to just communicate stability and information to him. Is that if Frankenstein is a consumer of the scientific laws of nature. That's where he finds his peace. That's where he has his expertise. And whatever your view was, watch the last chapter, we talked about it. He goes up for his mountaintop experience as therapy, right? One way or the other, he's retreating to nature, and
Right.
he's hoping to get this. And he's got this kind of, he's trying to talk out of both sides of his mouth when he's reflecting. He goes to nature for peace and tranquility, but as he reflects on nature, it's always changing around him. And then right in the middle of this section of the chapter, Mary Shelley drops a stanza of a poem from her lover and her husband about everything is change.
Yeah.
Naught may endure but mutability.
Right. That's how it ends.
I'm no scientist, but isn't that the law of entropy, that everything changes and degrades? So the whole first half of this chapter is Frankenstein trying to talk himself into peace and tranquility from the nature he's tried to master, and
not finding it.
Just like he didn't find any peace from creating the monster.
Yeah.
This is shadows of what the premise of the book is about.
Yeah. And even as he's starting to recognize the mutability of nature, though, he does start to kind of feel like, okay, all right, this is good. I am, surrounded by this, by nature. I'm surrounded by this creation, and it is good. He ends that chapter, or that paragraph, following the stanza from the poem, and he says, "My heart, which was before sorrowful, now swelled with something like joy. I exclaimed, 'Wandering spirits, if indeed ye wander, and do not rest in your narrow beds, allow me this faint happiness, or take me as your companion away from the joys of life.'" And he's kind of feeling good at this point. He has a feeling like joy, but what does he cry out to? He doesn't cry out to God. Wandering spirits.
It's perfect. It's poetic justice, because we find out that the spirits in scripture that are wandering like that are demons. We're going to talk a lot about the Job imagery in this, right? And so if you go to Job, and when Satan presents himself in the courtroom of God, and God's like, "Hey, where have you been?" And Satan's wandering to and fro on the earth. And so Frankenstein cries out to the wandering spirits, and then the creature shows up, which he spent the entire book calling a demon.
Right. Yeah. So it's as soon as he says this, in the very next sentence, "As I said this, I suddenly beheld the figure of a man at some distance, advancing toward me with superhuman speed." And so he then describes the creation, leaping over the crevasses and making his way as if it's just no effort whatsoever. And he sees his creation coming toward him, and he's filled with hatred, and he's filled with anger, and he doesn't, he all he wants to do is to destroy this thing. He said, devil, do you dare approach me? And do you not fear the fierce vengeance of my arm wreaked on your miserable head? So he threatens the creation, and he's really incapable of doing anything about his threats.
Well, yeah, it's one of those classic, be careful who you ask a rhetorical question because you might get an answer.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
not fear me? And the creature says
No,
basically
not really.
no. And again, it's an interesting literary device because Shelley, in the narrative flow of her book, is basically commenting that our emotions and passions aren't good enough to overcome reality.
Mm.
You get the sense that no matter how enraged Victor would and does become at the creature, he has zero power over this thing he has made.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the response of the creature here is fantastic. I expected this reception. All men hate the wretched. How then must I be hated, who am miserable beyond all living things? So he responds, and it's like it's cutting. All men hate the wretched. He'd go, oh, that's actually really true, and it's terrible. But the Lord does not hate the wretched. There is a deep love for those whom the world treats as wretched. But here, the Creator has spurned the creation, has not acted in love toward the creation, and what we see from the monster is that he is very much a manifestation of Victor himself. So he is in the image of Victor Frankenstein, and the way he deals with Victor is the way Victor has always dealt with everything else. So he said he gives him conditions, right? Here's what you're going to do, and if you don't, well, here's the consequences. I will gut the maw of death until it be satiated with the blood of your remaining friends. Yikes.
Yeah. That's quite the threat, right? It's absolutely, the Job parallels are there, the creation parallels are there, that the monster is created in the image of Frankenstein,
Mm-hmm.
and immediately starts to make demands on the creator.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another commentary on original sin,
Mm-hmm.
that we are born entitled in our sin to think that God owes us something.
Yeah.
And so after Victor tries to attack the creature, which
It's hilarious.
He easily eluded me. That's all we get. He easily eluded me. And then he said, have I not suffered enough? The anti-Job, Job confesses at the beginning of his sufferings, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, blessed be the name of the Lord, right?
Right. Yeah.
Have I not suffered enough? That's the creature.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes on, I am thy creature, and I will be even mild and docile to my natural Lord and King, if thou wilt also perform thy part.
Mm-hmm.
And then you remember, I am thy creature, I ought to be your Adam, but rather I am the fallen angel, which you have driven from joy for no misdeed.
Yeah. And it's true, because God creates Adam and then immediately converses with Adam and cares for Adam and teaches Adam, here's what you are to do and not to do, and gives Adam a companion, which we're going to come to here shortly.
Yeah.
Whereas Victor creates this creature and immediately is repulsed by the creature and runs away from the creature, abandons it. And so there is no love, no care, no concern.
There's no love, no care. Victor forsakes the creature for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Adam and Eve are driven out of the Garden of Eden for a very important reason, something
Right.
that they were told about. It was expounded on by God.
Yep.
If you eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die.
Yep.
And then, in fact, God reveals to us that the reason he drove Adam and Eve out of Eden was because of his mercy.
Right.
Because the curse would have been eternal if Adam and Eve then would have turned and eaten from the tree of
life,
the tree of life.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
so Victor is a poor creator indeed, does all of the things for no reason and curses this creature.
Mhm.
God, out of his mercy, does this. And, you know, we see, again, the entitlement of our sinful nature is reflected in the entitlement of the creature.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that last line of that paragraph really interesting. Make me happy and I shall again be virtuous.
Yeah.
What a pious lie. I mean, this
Saint
is the,
Anne,
but
if
this
you
is the
save
kind of
me, I will
thing that,
become a monk.
yeah, yeah, this is the kind of thing that sinful man does, right? God, do this for me and I will, right? We try to make a deal with God.
Oh.
And here, you know, the creature is trying to make a deal with Frankenstein, you know, make me happy, then I'll do these things. Well, no, you won't.
and again, the creature does not see the evil it has done as a reflection of who it is, but only as a result of the circumstances.
Right.
So this
right.
is what Victor thinks of himself. Well, I wouldn't have murdered these people if only
Yeah.
my life would have been better.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's not my fault. It's not my fault. And this is Adam and Eve in the garden too, right? The woman you gave me.
Yeah.
You know, it's history. It's kind of your fault, God. If
Yeah.
you hadn't given me that woman, none of this would have happened. You know, the serpent, it was the serpent that tempted me. You know, you didn't have to create the serpent. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's this shifting of blame. And he does the same thing here. And Victor has done this all along the way. So, okay. So what is Frankenstein? How does he respond to this? What happens next?
He's initially resistant. Begone, I will not
Mhm.
hear you. There can be no community between you and me.
Yeah.
Where really, I mean, again, more biblical imagery, you know, God in Isaiah says your sin has created a separation between you and your God. And here Victor's doing the same thing but from a completely different direction. We are enemies. Begone, or let us try our strength in a fight, in which one must fall. And so one last time the creature tries to reason with Victor and appeals to his sensibilities.
Yeah, it's fascinating because the creature seems so often really, really, really reasonable. And then in the next moment, it's like, and if you don't do it, I'll kill you.
Yeah. Well, reason or brute force, one of the way you're going to.
Yeah, it's
right?
it's just fascinating because you go from like this extreme, like he sounds very reasoned at times, and you're like kind of thinking along with him, like, okay, I could see where he's coming from, maybe. And then it's like, and if not, I'll kill all of your loved ones. Like, oh, okay, this is bad.
Yeah, so he goes on, and if he won't appeal to Victor's sensibilities as a creator, he's like, you, my creator, abhor me. What hope can I gather from your fellow creatures who owe me nothing?
Yeah.
He then appeals to the sense of human justice.
Yeah.
And what it is he appeals to Victor's sense that Victor is of a higher intellectual character.
He really appeals to his pride.
Yeah, he does. That's exactly what he does. He's like, the guilty are allowed by human laws, bloody as they are, to speak in their own defense before they are condemned. Listen to me, Frankenstein. You accuse me of murder, and yet you would, with a satisfied conscience, destroy your own creature. Oh, praise the eternal justice of man. It's that kind of sarcastic, biting comment that the Victor's facade starts to crumble.
Yeah. And then Victor, in that next paragraph, speaks as a bizarro Job. He says, Why do you call to my remembrance circumstances of which I shudder to reflect, and have been the miserable origin and author? Cursed be the day, abhorrent devil, in which you first saw light. Cursed, although I curse myself, be the hands that formed you. It's really much the bizarro Job, that Job speaks of the day of his own birth as being cursed at times. Um, but here, Victor is saying, um, cursed be the day that I made you. Um, and it's just a really interesting, flip of things here. The creator is um regretful of the day of making the creation, rather than the creation, in desperation, um, looking back and going, man, this is awful. Maybe it would have been better if I were never born.
Well, and it's also a bizarro Noah situation too, where God confesses to Noah, "I regret that I have
Hmm.
made man." Uh,
Yeah.
but what happens is the creature, and then Victor has appealed to his own pride, and he kind of talks himself into, well, maybe I'll hear this guy out.
Yep. Yep.
You
He
know,
does. He does. He after and it's because his pride is peaked, I think, here. So the monster, well, yeah, you got to hear me out because you're the one that can help me out here. You're the one that is capable of these things. And all of a sudden, yeah, I am the creator. Oh, I am pretty important. I better listen to this guy.
I'm
He
kind of a
seems
big.
reasonable. Yeah.
Well, and he confesses, for the first time, I felt the responsibilities of a creator to its creature.
Yeah.
And after all this, now you're finally getting to that point.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Little bit late.
yeah, really late in the game.
All right. Anything else on this chapter?
No, I think it's a good place to wrap it up.
Okay, very good. So next time we actually begin hearing the story of the monster,
The story
from the
within the story
moment.
within the story.
Yeah, you get the story that Victor is relating to, what was the guy's name
Walton.
at the
Walton.
beginning there? Walton. That's right. And Walton is relaying that story back to his sister, and now we get the story of the monster to Frankenstein, who relates it to Walton, who relates it to his sister. Yeah, we get this story within a story within a story. It's great. It's great. Okay, well, we'll get the monster story, beginning of the monster story, next time on The Word and the Works, and we look forward to being with you again. He gone.